Scry to and draw a card are a pair of unassuming lines of text. But when your friend and trusted Magic the Gathering professional says, we could play more artifact tutoring in our modern Pro Tour deck, or we could play Preordain, we pay attention. Hi, I'm Michael from Michael the Gathering. Welcome to Card of the Day and Hobbit Week. This week we're taking a break from our regularly scheduled requests to do one card from each of the colors of the new Hobbit set. We've all got our hands on it now. WotC, please sponsor me so that I have a reason to do this stuff early. And if WotC won't sponsor me, then you can show your support by leaving a common or uncommon comment down below for us to get back to next week. And if you want to cut to the front of the line or request something above uncommon, leave a little financial incentive. Today we're talking about Bilbo Baggins Burglar. This is one of the cards that I got incredibly excited for going into the set because it's a Preordain on a creature. And I have gotten justifiably excited or possibly just terrified about 3-mana, 2-power creatures that draw a card on ETB in recent sets. And so naturally, seeing Bilbo was kind of a big deal. Admittedly, Bilbo, unlike previous horrible design mistakes like Inspiring Overseer, is in the correct colors for a small, efficient creature that draws a card on ETB, because in blue, you're going to draw into more card draw, and in limited, that's actually sometimes a problem. Whereas in white, you're going to draw into large, threatening Baneslayer angels. But of course, Bilbo couldn't simply be a 3-mana 2/1 legendary draw a card on enters because he's one of the faces of the set. So of course he has to have a 1-mana Scry 2 sorcery adventure just to make it so that if you really want to play him as a 4-mana Preordain and a 2/1, you can absolutely do that, which is crazy. Luckily for the rest of us, it turns out that white-blue is absolutely garbage in the early data of the Hobbit Limited format. Mark my words, this will not remain true. Now, most people looking at a card like Bilbo Baggins Burglar might underappreciate him because it's just a small creature that replaces itself on ETB. And yeah, those things can be quite underwhelming. It's difficult, even when you have lived through multiple formats of it, to pass how just strong these cards actually are when you put them in a limited format. And it's primarily because not only are they allowing you to have a level of consistency in your deck that you're not supposed to, limited is also a format where 2-power creatures are extremely relevant. And while Bilbo having 1 toughness means that he dies to a random recruit token, in limited, any removal is still a piece of removal that you've had to use on a card that has already replaced itself. There are a few things that I find fascinating about the choices around common Bilbo that make him as good as he is, and I do kind of want to draw them out by making a comparison that I haven't really gone into on the channel before, which is between Preordain, an absolutely insane card, and one of the earliest Scry cards ever printed, Serum Visions. Now, Serum Visions is absolutely not Preordain. It's kind of astonishing how much worse Serum Visions is than Preordain just by taking the 2 effects and swapping them around. Scrying is always really good, and if there's anything that I can get you, the viewer, to take away from this video, it's that however good you think it is, it's better than that. One of the key aspects of scrying is that it's way better if you can immediately follow it up with actually putting those cards into your hand. Similarly, drawing a card is just incredibly good, but I hope to God I don't have to tell you that drawing cards is better than however good you think it is, because who doesn't love drawing cards? But if we look at a card like Serum Visions, you can see that essentially what we've got here are 2 Lego bricks that are pointing in the wrong direction to actually synergize with each other. By drawing a card first, Serum Visions is putting a card into your hand blind. Yes, you can use other effects to see the top card of your library, but for some reason, I have to say this every time I do a card evaluation, I'm talking about what the card does by itself. So Serum Visions puts the top card of your library into your hand, sight unseen, and then it scries 2, which, again, quite good. But then, even if you find exactly what you're looking for, or you bottom 2 cards because they're both not what you're looking for, you then don't get to see the last card, or you don't get to put the card that you have found into your hand, meaning you have to use a separate resource to put the thing in. When we flip the metaphorical Lego bricks around here, we get Preordain, and we start to see why Preordain is so good. And if you have these 2 cards, which is entirely possible because they've both been printed at ridiculously low rarities, put them into your commander decks and give them a go, and you will very quickly see the difference between casting these 2 spells. Preordain lets you look at the top 2 cards of your library and go, are either of these the thing I want to put into my hand immediately? And if they're not, you put them on the bottom of your library and you look for a 3rd card. This is upsettingly close to an ancestral recall, and no, I'm not speaking in hyperbole there. Both sides of this equation are having their shortcomings cancelled out by being in the right order here. You're scrying for information, and then you're being able to immediately put that information into practice, and you're getting a card which may or may not be good, but first you get to get a ton of extremely relevant information as to whether or not that card is going to be good. Most of the reason that Bilbo Baggins is not doing great at the moment in Hobbit Limited is the fact that white-blue and blue-green are kind of garbage. And viewer, this is your warning for the rest of the video. We're going hard into rant territory, because there's nothing I despise more right now than the Hobbit Limited's blue archetype. Of the 2 things that you can do in Hobbit Limited with blue, you have white-blue effects, which are captained by the excellent Patient Instructor, a 3-mana 2/2 that comes with a 1/1 if you're playing it correctly and you discard a non-land card. Again, a thing that you should be doing most of the time, because what you do when you're building a deck with a Connive or now Recruit effect is you trim the number of lands in your deck so that it's always good for you to be mana fixing yourself with your Recruit cards, because then you get the bonus effect from them. And the devastatingly underwhelming Mirkwood Nurturer, a 3-mana 3/2 with when it enters, bounce a non-land permanent you control. And if you do put a +1/+1 counter on it, it's a 4/3 for 3 mana that lets me bounce a land to my hand so I can get another landfall trigger. Because yes, once again, we have a green-blue landfall mechanic. I get that it's hard to make green-blue set mechanics, because green and blue are 2 of the colors with the least mechanical overlap for a lot of reasons. There's always going to be a color pair with the least mechanical overlap. That's math. But the thing that absolutely irks me about this is that it's not hard to build a fun blue spells deck, and green is allowed to have a spells deck if it's specifically aligned with this blue. As much as I wasn't a fan of the exact implementation of Cuboid Colony in Secrets of Strixhaven, I did genuinely come to like Increment, and I think that casting big spells is an interesting and fun way to play a green-blue archetype, and it probably also has something to do with the fact that the green-blue was absolutely busted in that set. So for a counterexample, let me give you a set where green-blue was not as busted. Avatar: The Last Airbender. No, hang on. I'm talking about the Lessons deck, not green-blue allies, because allies was just everywhere. Caring about a particular subset of spells is very fun and a very green-blue thing to do, and a thing I would have loved to see, especially if we're going to tie it back to Common Bilbo and have, for instance, a set mechanic where you care about casting adventures. Even if the set was going to be something boring like a landfall effect, I will point out that we have had probably the best landfall set mechanic of recent memory in Etch of Eternities, where landfall also came with the lander tokens, giving us not just a landfall mechanic, but actually an interesting and interactive way to have multiple steps to the landfall game plan, because you would put things onto the battlefield and then you would use them for either the stated effect, being rampant growthing yourself at instant speed, or you would sacrifice the artifact to literally anything else. God, we're even talking about a set called The Hobbit, and we don't have a set mechanic based around food tokens. Can I please draw everyone's attention to the fact that one of the green-blue signpost uncommons for this set, Sylvan Reveler, depicts an elven host X, who is clearly serving people food and beverages, who does not generate any food tokens. We know that the people love food tokens decks. Please just give it to them. But in my mind, there is no greater sin for specifically revisiting the Lord of the Rings franchise, getting a green-blue draft archetype with elves in it, and not revisiting the Lord of the Rings elven scry mechanic. Because it was fun, it was weird, and maybe people didn't really like it because it's weird and it's kind of complicated. But we haven't done it again, and I want more, and we're specifically in the place where we could have straight up reprinted things like Chance Met Elves. Common Bilbo would have been absolutely fantastic to print into a set that cared about when you scry effects, or a set that cares about when you cast an adventure effect. There are so many things that we could have gone with here. Instead, we have to deal with white-blue wanting Bilbo because it's a when you draw a second card each turn draft archetype, and green-blue just wanting Bilbo because he draws cards. So many casual Johnnies have picked up these insane scry cards and looked at them and thought, man, I wish there was a way for me to properly reward myself for scrying an insane number that wasn't specifically Thassa's Oracle. We have one Elrond that rewards you for going wide and scrying deep, and all I'm asking is for Sylvan Reveler to reward us for scrying deep and going tall. As I make another serious crack at making this my job, I'm, of course, getting back into doing shorts again, because that's just required on YouTube. And as my dedicated and caring audience, I need you all to stop me from absolutely descending into rage bait anarchy as I cover terrible rares.